Every fall, the Harvest Festival is the highlight of the year in our small rural farming community. It's a time when everyone comes together to celebrate the fruits of their labor, enjoying the food, music, and camaraderie. But this year, the crops have failed. The once vibrant fields now lay barren, the golden stalks of wheat replaced by shriveled, lifeless plants. The air is heavy with unease, and whispers of an ancient curse grow louder with each passing day. I lived in this town my whole life. My family has farmed this land for generations, and the festival has always been a time of joy. But now, there's a dark cloud hanging over us. The legends say that our ancestors made a pact with a malevolent spirit centuries ago, promising a sacrifice to ensure a bountiful harvest. If the sacrifice isn't made, the spirit's wrath would bring ruin to the land. At first, I thought it was just old folklore, stories told to scare kids around the campfire. But then the deaths started. The first body was found near the edge of town, a young farmhand named Jake. His body was discovered early one morning, lying in the dirt with strange symbols carved into his flesh. The town was shocked, but the sheriff wrote it off as a tragic accident, maybe an animal attack. But deep down, everyone felt a gnawing fear. A few days later, another body was found, Martha, the schoolteacher. She had the same symbols carved into her, and this time, there was no dismissing it. Panic spread through the community like wildfire. No one knew who or what was responsible, but everyone feared the curse had returned. Old Mr. Thompson, the town historian, was the first to speak openly about the curse. He gathered everyone in the town hall, his weathered face grave as he recounted the legend. According to him, our ancestors had indeed made a pact with a spirit to ensure their survival during a harsh winter. The spirit had demanded a blood sacrifice, and they had complied, killing one of their own to save the rest. The story sent chills down my spine. It sounded ridiculous, but with the deaths and the crop failures, it was hard to dismiss. Mr. Thompson believed that the spirit was demanding another sacrifice, and until it was made, the killings would continue. As the festival approached, fear gripped the town. No one felt safe, and the once joyful preparations were overshadowed by the threat of the curse. My friends and I tried to go about our usual routines, but it was impossible to ignore the tension in the air. One night, a group of us gathered at the old barn on the outskirts of town. It was a place we used to hang out as kids, a safe haven where we could escape the troubles of the world. But even there, the fear followed us. "Do you really think it's a curse?" asked Emily, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. "But something's definitely wrong. People are dying, and no one knows why." "We have to do something," said Tom, his usual bravado replaced by a look of worry. "We can't just sit around and wait for the next person to die." Mr. Thompson had mentioned that the symbols carved into the bodies were part of an ancient ritual, a way for the spirit to mark its victims. He believed that if we could decipher the symbols, we might be able to break the curse. Determined to find answers, we decided to visit Mr. Thompson's house the next day. The old historian lived alone in a small cottage at the edge of town, surrounded by stacks of dusty books and ancient artifacts. He welcomed us in, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I've been expecting you," he said, leading us to a cluttered study. "I believe the answers lie in these books. We must find the meaning of the symbols and the way to break the curse." For hours, we pored over the old texts, searching for any clue that might help us. The symbols were unlike anything we'd ever seen, a twisted language of lines and curves that seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, we finally found something. "This passage," Emily said, pointing to a faded page in a thick, leather-bound book. "It talks about a ritual to appease the spirit. A way to end the curse." The ritual was gruesome. It required a final tribute, a blood sacrifice to satisfy the spirit's hunger. The text didn't specify who or what had to be sacrificed, only that the offering had to be made willingly. The thought of more death made my stomach turn, but what choice did we have? The night of the festival arrived, and the town was a ghost of its former self. The usual laughter and music were replaced by hushed whispers and nervous glances. We gathered in the town square, the air thick with tension. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, his face pale as he addressed the crowd. "We have discovered the origins of the curse," he said, his voice trembling. "And we believe there is a way to break it. But it requires a final, willing sacrifice." The crowd erupted into chaos, fear and anger mixing in a volatile cocktail. No one wanted to believe it, but deep down, we all knew it was true. The deaths, the crop failures, it was all connected to the curse. As the night wore on, a sense of resignation settled over us. We had to make a choice, and it was a choice no one wanted to make. Finally, a figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was Emily, her face determined but scared. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. "If it means saving the town, I'll be the sacrifice." "No!" I shouted, rushing forward. "There has to be another way." But Emily shook her head. "It has to be someone, Sam. And if this is the only way, then so be it." The crowd was silent as Emily made her way to the center of the square. Mr. Thompson began the ritual, chanting in the ancient language as the rest of us watched in horror. The symbols appeared on Emily's skin, glowing with an eerie light. Tears streamed down my face as I watched my friend, knowing there was nothing I could do to save her. As the ritual reached its climax, a cold wind swept through the square, and the air was filled with a low, rumbling growl. The ground trembled, and a shadowy figure appeared, its eyes burning with a malevolent fire. The spirit had come to claim its sacrifice. Emily stood tall, her eyes locked on the spirit as it approached. "Take me," she said, her voice unwavering. "But spare the town." The spirit paused, its eyes narrowing as it regarded her. Then, with a final, deafening roar, it vanished, taking Emily with it. The symbols faded, and the air grew still. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the ground began to tremble, and the air was filled with the sound of life returning to the land. The crops began to grow, vibrant and healthy, and the tension that had gripped the town lifted. The curse was broken, but at a terrible cost. We mourned Emily's loss, but we knew that she had saved us all. The festival went on, a somber celebration of life and sacrifice. We would never forget the price that had been paid, and we would always honor the memory of those who had given their lives to break the curse. As the years passed, the legend of the curse became just that, a legend. But those of us who lived through it would always remember the truth. The land demanded a sacrifice, and the spirit of the harvest was not easily appeased. And though the curse was broken, the memory of that dark time would haunt us forever.